Hi, all you music lovers. My name is Andy Rodriguez, also known as the Blackspinner, and welcome to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, what we do here is that we go through my albums in alphabetical and in chronological order. And I will go through an album and I will pick out key tracks on each album. And like I said, I'm doing this in alphabetical order, and I am already on the letter Y. So if you guys have fallen behind, you can go to the past episodes and catch up. Today, with the letter Y, I only have two artists with the letter Y. One is Yes, and the other one is Neil Young. So each of these artists are going to have their own episodes. Now, I've done several episodes with just one artist before. I've done the Beatles, Deep Purple, Rush, Led Zeppelin, and Pink Floyd, and a couple of others. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, like I said, if you're new to the channel, what I do here is that I'll go through the albums, and I will pull out some key tracks, maybe some tracks that you're aware of, maybe a couple tracks that you're not aware of, and maybe you might want to go back and stream them, and maybe you'll become big fans of the band and of the song. So let's get started. The band Yes comes out of England. They are a prog rock band that started in about 68, 69. And they've gone through many lineup changes. But what was very unique about these lineup changes is that they would bring past band members back. Or they would flip-flop. So a lot of these artists will always be part of the Yes family. And what's great about this band Yes is that they have a instrumental virtuoso in almost every instrument, in drums, keyboards, bass, and in guitar, and great vocals. And not just that, there's something else that people don't talk that much about. Yes, that's the backing vocals from the rest of the band. So let's get started. Let's dig through these albums by the band Yes. I do not have their first album, but I do have their second album, and that's called Yes, A Time and a Word. And this album here will feature the lead singer John Anderson and the bass player Chris Squire. And Chris Squire, I believe, will be the only member of the band that will go through all that has been there since the beginning and is still there today. Now, the great thing about Chris Squire is that he's a fantastic bass player. He is a virtuoso at that instrument. And on this album here, he really shows off on here. Not only sometimes does he use a bass as a lead instrument, but also there are bass riffs on this album. So the songs on here that stick out to me is No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed, Every Days, and Sweet Dreams. Sweet Dreams will go back to what I just said about Chris Squire's bass. It's just phenomenal on that song. On side 2, the songs that stick out to me is The Astral Traveler and Time and a Word, the title track. And here's the back of it. And for years they will record for Atlantic. And that album, you know, it was their second album, and if you're familiar with Yes, with that album you will hear some of the blueprints for their future recordings. Now, that was the blueprints. This is the album that sets all the wheels in motion for not just for the future, but right here, this is where it all begins. On this album called the Yes album, this will be the debut with Steve Howe, the guitar player virtuoso. Not only does he play 6-string, he also plays the 12-string, also plays acoustic, slide, steel, whatever he can get his hands on, and he makes it work just great. There's the inside of it. And the songs on here, there's 3 songs on here that were FM staple hits, and they still are today. Even if you're streaming any kind of classic rock station, you will see, no, you will hear these three songs I'm about to talk about. And that's going to be Yours Is No Disgrace, Star Trooper, which is a really good song, and I've Seen All Good People. All these are staples in FM radio, and they are staples in their concert repertoire even to today. And those are the three key tracks that I will talk about. Also, another good track off of here was Perpetual Change. But, yeah, the Yes album is a really good album, and I highly recommend it. After that, the next album is an album that will break the band into a stratosphere. Not just break them in the U.S., but break them worldwide. This is the beginning of the madness that is Yes. Talking about Fragile. And another key note on this album is that they will have a new keyboardist that will step into the ring. His name is Rick Wakeman. Now, I've spoken about Rick Wakeman. He made a few solo albums that I talked about in the previous episode for the W's for Rick Wakeman. But this album here was the beginning to conquer the world with. And a lot of purists, when it comes to prog rock, consider this one of the finest prog rock albums around. And here's the inside of it. And I like to open up the gatefold. Another great thing about Yes is that their album packaging were just top notch. Just fantastic artwork all the way around. And the songs on here are going to be Roundabout, We Have Seen Heaven, and South Side of the Sky is a really good song too. And Long Distance Runaround. Long Distance Runaround was another radio hit along with Roundabout. Roundabout was released as a single and they shortened it down, but people who heard the shortened version really liked it. And when they bought the album, I read that they liked the longer version of Roundabout, and not just that, they liked everything else that accompanied that song, which was this album. And what else is on here? The Fish and Mood for a Day. Those are really good key tracks as well. This album almost plays as one piece with changes and chord changes, and just so much stuff goes on. And that's one thing about Yes. You can throw on their album and just enjoy the music coming out, because they have virtuosos on every instrument. And they're not just virtuosos put together. This is a cohesive band, and you just don't find that anywhere. So next album after that was Close to the Edge, and this will continue the classic lineup. I call it the classic lineup of John Anderson, Bill Bruford, Steve Howe, Chris Squire, and Rick Wakeman. Of course, Bill Bruford will leave and join King Crimson probably in a couple more years. After this album. And in will step in Alan White, which, Alan White's just as good. And so let's talk about this album. This album here only has 3 songs, which you're starting to get into the Yes that dug deep, where one song will fill one whole side. So on this album, it'll be the title track, Close to the Edge, that will take up all of side 1. Side 2 will have And You and I, which is a beautiful, long, stretched out ballad. And then my favorite track on here is Siberian Katru. I had to look at it so I could pronounce it right. Siberian Katru. And that's just a fantastic song. There's the inside of it. Yeah, this is just a really good album. And after that, Yes will release not a double live album, even though I love them so much, but release a triple live album doing kind of a recap of the first 3 albums, the Yes album, Fragile, and Close to the Edge. Talking about Yes songs. And look how wonderful this stretches out. as a package. Look at that. Isn't that neat? Try to fit it all in there. And then you flip it around and there's some more. I mean, like, the artwork is just great on here. And like I said, this will be a recap of the past 3 albums. Siberian Khatru, Heart of the Sunrise, and You and I, which is better on a live setting than it is on the album, Close to the Edge. Roundabout finishes side 1 of volume 2, and then Your Move, All Good People, Long Distance Runaround, and volume 3, which will be the 3rd album on here. Of course, Close to the Edge takes up that whole side. Flip it, and you will have Yours Is No Disgrace into Starship Trooper, which those were big album tracks, and even better when they put it in a live setting. So Yes songs. And after that, they might have gotten a little indulgent in this next album. But you know, if you're a Yes fan, who's going to complain about more Yes? So after that triple live album, sorry, I had to turn off the TV. That was kind of bothering me there. You know, baseball started today. That's why I'm wearing a baseball t-shirt. But I'll talk about that later. Let's continue with Yes. So they will release a double album after a triple live album. And this one's called Tales from the Topographic Oceans. There's that. There's the inside of it. And you know, what the indulgence of this is that it's a double live album. No, I'm sorry. It's a double album. A plain double album. One song takes up each side. So there's only 4 songs on this album. But you know how Yes does it. They cut it up, and there's not really cut it up, but there's different time changes. And there's different moods to each piece, which makes it a really good Yes album. But yeah, there it is. And after that one, this album here, I just recently got. I got it like about 2 months ago, and I've been listening to it here and there. But I was getting ready for tonight's episode, so I really sat down and listened to Relayer. Now this one will have a change with Rick Wakeman leaving briefly. He will be back, and he is being replaced by Patrick Moraz, which I believe this is that gentleman's only album with them. Here's the inside of it. Side 1, again, takes up side 1, The Gates of Delirium, 1 song. And side 2 will have 2 songs only. So this album has 3 songs, but you know, in great Yes fashion, it's the music that really, it doesn't matter how many songs are on there, it's Yes. After that, they will release a compilation called Yesterdays to give a little recap of the first 2 albums. The first album just plainly called Yes, and the second album called A Time and a Word. We went over it, and what keynote on this album here is they wanted to do a little run through of the 2 first albums, a couple of albums that maybe didn't get the attention they should have had, and since there was so much buzz about them from the Yes album, and from Fragile, and from Close to the Edge, and the Yes songs, to go back a little bit and let those fans know what came before that. And really a key note of this here that I believe I like very much is that they do a 10-minute cover of Simon & Garfunkel's America, which is totally different, which I'm pretty sure, you know, it's going to be different from what Simon & Garfunkel sounded like. Even though they put their own spin on it. They almost make the song their own. I still prefer the Simon and Garfunkel version, but this version is very good. I like it a lot. But the Simon Garfunkel is just better. It just is, because I love it. And the songs on here, besides America, which please look into that. Look into Yes doing America cover. It is good. The other Time and a Word, Sweet Dreams. I talked about those. And Astral Traveler. I spoke about those earlier. I still feel so strongly about that. And next will be Yes, Going for the One. This is a really good album. Rick Wakeman comes back to the fold after, making some solo albums that were so well received by the music industry and the music world, and we thank them, and we thank him for what he gave us. And you can go back to the W's and hear those. The songs on here, Going for the One, Turn of the Century, Parallels, Wondrous Stories is a really good song. I haven't been talking enough about John Anderson's vocals. He's got great vocals, a very distinct voice, and on the song here, Wondrous Stories, he really brings a lot of his personality into that song. And this ends with a masterpiece called Awakened, which is my favorite song on this album. And next, we will hit an album called Tormato by Yes. This is a okay album. When different Yes releases come out, you kind of want them to stay up to par, but it's kind of hard to do that, to stay up to par at all times. But by saying that, this is still a really good album. It's just not the classics that we were talking about earlier. But let's go with Future Times is a good song. Rejoice. Really, every song is good here, just not as good. That's all. Side 2. A lot of people, or a lot of critics, don't like Arriving UFO. I like Arriving UFO. I think it's different. It's a little weird for them, and I enjoy it. But the great track on here is On the Silent Wings of Freedom, which is what closes out the album. This is really good stuff. Alan White is now on drums, but then you got the other classic lineup of Anderson, Howe, Squire, and Wakeman. And after this album, they will split up, and we will have a different. We will have a different vocalist and also a different keyboardist. Well, how's that going to sound? I'll tell you how it's going to sound. It's going to sound still great. This is the heaviest album in Yes's catalog. I'm talking about drama. Rick Wakeman has left again and will be replaced. So him and John Anderson leave, but they'll be back in the fold. But when they leave, they will be replaced by two guys that were in the band The Bugles. And if you remember The Bugles were famous for having the first video on MTV. They sang "Video Killed the Radio Star," and that's a great song. And that was done by the two guys that will join Yes for this one album. They will help out on others, but right here, this was their debut album together. Jeff Downs will take over on keyboards, and Trevor Horn will take over on vocals for Anderson. And Steve Howe, let me tell you about this album. Alan White, the drummer, Chris Squire, the bass player, and Steve Howe, the guitar player, on this album just go heavy. This is the heavy for Yes. and the guitar playing is pretty metallic, and you really don't know which way Steve Howe is going. You never know which way Steve Howe is going. I don't think the band knows which way Steve Howe is going to be going with his guitar. Sometimes he played solos that don't even match the song that was going, but it's just so much fun to listen to. But yeah, the album Drama, I highly recommend this to anyone that is a Yes fan. There's the album cover. I showed you the inside. The songs on here, Machine Messiah, Does It Really Happen, Into the Lens, and Tempest Fugit are the key tracks on this album. I named 4. There's only 6. So yeah, that's a good album. And next is their... It's hard to say that this is their album that broke them into the mainstream when they had so much already stuff. So I'm not going to call it break into the mainstream, but this album will have their biggest hit, which is so opposite of what a Yes song is. I'm talking about 90125. It took me a little while to warm into this album, but I do enjoy it. This does have their biggest hit ever, Owner of a Lonely Heart. And just a very key note, while this was being done, Downs and Steve Howe leave, and they help form Asia, which I talked about that album in the episode of the letter A. So you gotta go way back to my episodes to find that. Well, not really, just click on the A's. The Owner of a Lonely Heart. So let's get to these songs. This album, you're not going to find the one side song. You're not going to find the big long prog rock songs, but you're going to find good pop rock with flourishes of prog. Let's see, Owner of a Lonely Heart, Hold On, It Can Happen, which was a really good song. I really liked It Can Happen. It can happen to you. It can happen to me. All that's on side 1. Side 2 we have Cinema, which is a little instrumental, and Our Song, City of Love, and Hearts. Yeah, this is a really good album. It took me a while. A lot of Yes purists, which I'm not a Yes purist. I'm just a lover of the band. Took some time to warm to this album. And the last album that I have by Yes, it will be their next one after that one, was The Big Generator by Yes. And this album here, I do have to admit, I've heard only a couple of times. And this will be exactly the same lineup as 90125. And this album's okay. I really don't have any songs to really talk about this one. I just maybe have to hear it a little bit more. But they did not have that much output when it came to the 1980s. I think they only released 3 albums: Drama, 90215, and Big Generator. And I wish I can see what year this was released on. Yeah, 87. Yeah, so they only released the 3 albums, but come the 90s, which I believe is the best decade of music. But then again, I was, in the 90s, I was in high school. So, everyone's going to feel that way about their high school years. But anyway, the classic lineup will reform and tour and release live albums, release a couple of albums in the 90s I'll talk about when I go through my cassettes. Well, thanks a lot for hanging out with me tonight and going through the band Yes. We went through the collection that I have on vinyl, and I think I almost have it covered. And I really enjoyed going these with you, and I hope that if you're not a Yes fan, I hope me talking about it and you maybe going back and listening to Yes, maybe it might become one of your favorite bands. I know it became one of a good band for me to listen to. Thanks again out there to my friend Jeremy Marcantel out there in Sulphur, Louisiana, who introduced me to Yes. I knew some Yes, the hit songs that were on the radio, But after he introduced me to a little bit more, and me and him talking about the band, it really got me to buying more and more. And I'm glad I did, because I really enjoy the richness of the output that ES does in music. Well, that does it for me tonight. Thanks a lot for hanging out. And I will see y'all next time, when I will be going through the albums by Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And if just to let y'all know, Neil Young and Crazy Horse is my second favorite band of all time, right behind the Beatles. So I've talked all about these. So I'm about to hit one of my favorites of all time, which will be Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Well, you guys and girls out there, take care of each other. Keep rocking, and I'll see y'all next time. Good night.